A big round of applause for all the ignites that are going to happen. They're really, really hard to do. It takes a lot of courage. So we will start our parade now. You can either talk here or hold this, whichever is more comfortable for you. Thank you. All right.
Hello. Well, thanks for having me here. There's always a lot of figuring out what's going on with a very old, mature sort of following, and I thought I would take some time to use whatever it is I do to check in on the state of things, what's going on, and then give some advice, unsolicited at the end. So I always feel like an outsider in this community because I was actually an application developer, so I was that horse pooping out rainbows. I also just make slides, so I really have no legitimacy. And I also thought, in thinking about what I was saying, I remember when I was a young programmer, I'd always want to do new things, build stuff, try new stuff, and the old developers would tell me no. And I thought, I'm always going to remember that and never be that old developer who wants to give advice proactively to people. And yet here I am, inevitably, you do become that old developer. And I still don't like those old developers who were telling me no, but now I at least understand where they were coming from with trying to simplify things and focus more on outcomes and the other one, outputs, I think. Anyways, I'm Cote. I'm really lucky that I've been able to spend the second half of my career studying how large organizations get better at software. I've written some books, I do some podcasts, other nonsense. I work at VMware Tanzu by Broadcom, where we help large organizations build and run the platforms that run thousands of applications you might have even used. So let's look at our progress. So I put this together, and thankfully I got a lot of corrections after I sent these slides in. But if you look at kind of like the clusters of DevOps over the years, it's good to ask, so are things working out? Are we getting better? And if you were just to look at it this way, you would say, well, 50% of us are still not living the dream. Here we are down here. I don't really know if purple is good or bad. It's hard to figure out if you've got four things, what you're going to do with the red light sort of system there. But really what's important to look at, and what I think is encouraging, is if you look at how these very confusing to a philosophy major like me clusters are made, things are actually getting better. As if you look at the low performers, it used to take them 6 months or more, with their lead time, which I don't really understand. When I was a developer, it's just like you release software, but now they can do it in a much smaller amount of time. So things are actually pretty good. And if you look at IDC surveys and other surveys, about 50% of people say they do DevOps, depending on how you slice it, which is great, right? Like other people are doing things, but there's a few things that are missing that I think are good to focus on. I like practical things to do, and this is one of them, is making sure that people are actually automating their builds. Now this is like 13 years of surveys, and what you see is that about 50% of people are doing automation. Now, there's newer ones from the CD Foundation where you can see it looks a little worse, right? Red here is bad, which is the top one if you have problems with colors. But you can see that there's a lot of people who are not automating or involved in automating and doing testing, which is sort of like, maybe we should fix that. Now, the next one, which of course I'm commercially and also just professionally interested in, is platforms. Now, this is where the old person of me comes in, is like, we keep building these platforms over and over again, just like that Monte Carlo I used to have. Very nice, we keep building that over and over. But recently, we've really started to tear down the platform and build it back up. Thankfully, this is not a longbow, but a very similar sort of thing. This came around and gunned down all the platform work we've been doing. The platform as a service, if you remember that word. And we've been building it slowly back up. And what we learn every time we go through the cycle to be that old developer is that things get worse. And hopefully they get better as we finish it out. And you see this in survey results where the sort of benefits that you get from a cloud-native platform have been going down over the years. And indeed, this is a major lesson that I don't think we learn very much, what those old developers are trying to tell me, is figure out the intention of this technology that you're using. So if you look at one of the two famous Kubernetes people, he pretty much says, that wasn't for you, right? Like the intention wasn't that you would be directly accessing it. And this brings about, I think, the kind of bugbear of DevOps, right? Which is the need to expand out the number of characters used to describe what DevOps is. And think about it as platform engineering. And I think there's a lot that the DevOps community can do to bring into that community to help them out. And to summarize, right, do you have CI/CD in place? Never mind CD, do you have automation in place? But actually check on it. I know you probably do, but maybe other teams don't, and you can go help them out, which is what I generally see with organizations I talk with. And the other one is like, instead of building platforms over and over again, which is great, I enjoyed it, maybe it's time to start product managing the platforms, to think about how can we make the platforms we have better by talking with those application developers. Then I'll give you some homework. I don't have a big list of books like many of my friends here always have, but there's a great talk that Bol, kind of like the Amazon of the Netherlands, gave, and it's pretty much all you need to know about product managing a platform. I highly recommend it because they actually do more than just make slides. So thanks for having me. I'm always happy to talk, although I do kind of sneak out at the end of conferences like this. But it'd be great to talk more about what your experiences are, if you have positive things to say about me. I say enough negative things to myself, so I don't need that. Thanks.